Hey guys, it's Darren Pitt here from darrenpitt.com, coming to you from the Bahamas. And I'm here to share part number 3 of my secrets to six-figure income. And in terms of looking at building quality relationships with people that you come into contact with, okay? Now, here's the thing. Tip number 3 is very straightforward, very simple, and it is remembering and using people's names. Now, as simple as that sounds, guys, it's probably one of the most powerful strategies and characteristics that you want to develop in the multi-level and network marketing fields, okay? Now, remember, your goal is to develop a long-term relationship. Your goal is to be able to attract people to you so that way that they come to know, trust, and like you, okay? And the fastest way to do that is by using and remembering people's names, okay? Now, you have to realize something. You know, you're working with human nature, all right? And one of the things that you have to realize is that people are most interested in his or her own name. All right, that's the bottom line. All right, they're only interested in themselves. It's a selfish nature that human beings have, and if you want to be able to tap into that and use that to your advantage and become an influence, you have to start utilizing this principle. Okay. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know, I can't remember names, or I'm not good at remembering names, or you know. Here's the truth. Most people, they just don't take the time or the energy necessary to repeat and imprint that person's name in their mind, okay? Now, I can relate, because at one point in time, you know, remembering people's name was not one of my strong points, okay? I would meet somebody now, talk to them, and, you know, I can't remember their name, all right? Now, by the end of the video, I'm going to give you some specific techniques that you can use to remember people's names very, very quickly, guys, and this works, okay? Today, when I do presentations, you know, and I'm talking to an audience of people, I've developed the skill over a period of time of remembering 15 to 20 persons' name just by going ahead and asking them, talking to them a little bit, and then during my presentations, talking to them and calling them out by name. And I'm going to tell you, I've seen leaders before me do this, and it have a tremendous impact on the audience, on the people that they're speaking to, okay? And so that was one of the things that I said, you know, if I wanted to have the size and type of business that I saw some of my mentors and coaches having, I needed to be able to adopt that same strategy, all right? Now, one of the things is, sometimes there are people's names that are just genuinely difficult to remember, and you know, or maybe it's hard to say, you know, because maybe they're from different cultures and so on. One of the things that you need to make sure that you resist at all costs is shortening people's names. You know, there are some people that may not be offended by it, and then again, there are some people, if you shorten their name, they're highly offended, and all of a sudden you lose a person that could potentially be a long-term friend, business partner, and someone who could probably help you generate thousands of dollars long into the future, guys. And you don't want to make the mistake of shortening somebody's name and offending them, and you know, and making a bad impression or a bad first impression on that individual, okay? So what you want to do is make the extra effort to learn how to pronounce people's names properly, guys. I can't tell you how vitally important that is. All right, so now let's look at some quick tips of how you could actually use the techniques to remember people's names quickly. All right, now when you first meet someone or you're meeting them for the first time, what you want to do is, you know, introduce yourself, and you want to make sure, ask that person their full name. You know, if you ask somebody, hey, what's your name, buddy? You know, they might say, oh, my name is John. I say, oh, yeah, John, what's your last name? John what? And, you know, and they'll give you their name. Now, immediately upon them giving you their name, all right, is one of two things. If their name is common, then the very next thing you want to do is repeat that name. So, you know, say, well, my name is John, or John Smith, or whatever it is. Say, hey, John, you know, it's a pleasure meeting you, you know. And I say, what do you do, right? The other aspect is, you want to ask them how to spell it if it is an unusual name. Like, recently, I met a gentleman. He was from Nigeria, and he had a very unusual name. It wasn't a name that I was familiar with. So when he first said it, you know, I heard how it sounded, but I wasn't sure. And so I asked him, I said, well, how do you spell that? You know, and it's okay. You know, you can take a minute and write it down if you need to. That's actually one of the tips. Write down people's names if it's a difficult spelling, but by asking them how to spell it, it helps your brain to remember it, okay? The other thing is you want to repeat that name several times, all right? And this is, you do this naturally during conversation. Every time I address that person, I call their name. And they say, well, John, where do you work? And they might say, oh yeah, I work X, Y, Z. They say, oh great, John. So are you married, John? Right? And so every time you repeat that, it imprints it into your mind, okay? The other thing is, try to associate their name with some characteristic or something that will help you to remember it, okay? Now, that there, it might be a big guy you're talking to, right? And you might, anybody might say, well, Big John, right? So it helps you to remember that name, okay? So guys, these tips, if you use them and you implement them, you will begin to remember people's names if you're challenged with that. So here are the tips again. Ask people their full name. Ask them how to spell it if it's a difficult name or an unusual name. Repeat that name several times while speaking to them. Write that name down. And then try to associate that name with some distinct characteristic of that person. Now guys, always remember that people are most proud of their names, and it's the most sweetest sounding word that you could say to an individual. So don't leave any money on the table. Don't lose friendships, relationships, and long-term income because you failed to do this very, very simple technique that has made many multi-level marketers, many online marketers very, very wealthy. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that tip. Make sure subscribe, so you can get access to great training like this or any other information like this, and get ready for tip number 4. That's it, coming from Darren Pitt at darrenpitt.com.